and welcome to my channel Boundless Books. One of my resolutions in 2018 is to read more historical fiction books, and that should sound pretty awesome to a lot of you because currently my #1 video is my historical fiction video. So in order to be a more well-rounded reader and challenge myself to read slightly less fantasy and sci-fi, I've created a list of 5 historical fiction books that I think sound really interesting. So without further ado, let's just dive into the list. Oh, fun fact, this is actually the 3rd time that I've recorded this video. The first time it was out of focus, the second time the file got corrupted, so this is just a testament to how much I love you guys and I really want to get a video out there. The first book on my list is The Marriage of Opposites by Alice Hoffman. She's the author of the book Practical Magic, which, while I've never read it, I have seen the movie with Sandra Bullock a number of times. This book is set on the island of St. Thomas in the mid-1800s and follows a young woman named Rachel, who is actually the mother of the historical painter Pissarro, who is a very famous French Impressionistic painter. Rachel is a young woman who envisions a very grand future for herself. She wants to travel to Paris. However, at a very young age, she is married off to an older widower who already has 3 children. When Rachel's husband suddenly dies, this leaves her with the opportunity to take control of her life. My mother actually read this book recently in her book club and has just been raving about it, so it's got me really intrigued to read this. I also really like books that are about art and painters. I am a graphic designer by profession. I also have done a lot of sculpture and drawing in the past, so this is a subject matter that just really appeals to me. The next book on my list is The English Wife by Lauren Willig. This book is not actually out yet, but you don't have very long to wait. It comes out on January 9th. This novel is set in New York during the Gilded Age, which is the early 1900s, so around 1920-1930. And it follows family intrigue, affairs, and murder. When the wealthy Bayard Van Duville turns up with a knife in his chest and his wife mysteriously disappears, his sister-in-law Janie is determined to uncover the mystery of what happened to them. I don't know too much more about this book than that brief synopsis, and in fact I don't want to. I want to be surprised by the mystery of this. But I have seen a few booktubers talk about this and it's got me intrigued. Also, recently went to Newport, Rhode Island and saw The Breakers, which is this really gaudy Gilded Age mansion, and I just really want to learn way more about this time period. The 3rd book on my list is Column of Fire by Ken Follett. And this is the 3rd book in the Kingbridge series. The first book in the Kingbridge series is one that you've all probably heard of. It's pretty famous. It's called Pillars of the Earth. They even made a mini-series of that. That book follows a number of characters in this fictitious English village of Kingsbridge as a grand cathedral is being erected. The novel switches between various characters' perspectives. It is super dense, it's over 1,000 pages, really full of detail, but I absolutely adored it when I read it back in high school. Now this 3rd book is out, and I don't think you need to have read the 1st or the 2nd books in the series in order to enjoy this. This novel takes place a number of years after the events of the first 2 in the series, and it follows a man named Ned, who becomes embroiled in the political situation of the mid-1500s when Catholics and Protestants were fighting quite a lot in England. I'm hoping this book is full of court intrigue and politics, and just chock full of lots of details. It's also been a long time since I've read a whopper of a novel like this, so I'm excited to kind of have something to sink my teeth into. The next book on my list is 1000 White Women by Jim Fergus. This book has been out for a while, but I actually heard about it recently from my husband's grandmother. She was describing the synopsis when I saw her during Thanksgiving, and this book just sounded so intriguing that I had to add it to my TBR list. The novel is set in America in the late 1800s, and it has a pretty bizarre premise. It follows a fictitious governmental program called Brides for Indians, and the idea behind the program is that the Northern Cheyenne Indians population is just being decimated by all the settlers moving out west. So the chieftain of the Northern Cheyenne Indians goes to DC, meets with Ulysses S. Grant, and is like, can I have 1,000 white women so that we can bolster our population and better assimilate? And the government's like, sure. So the book follows a woman who's elected to join this program named Mary Dodd. She has kind of a dismal existence, and this is a way for her to improve her life. I have no idea how historically accurate this book is going to be, but I'm incredibly intrigued because it was written by a journalist. So I'm hoping it's full of lots of really interesting details. Maybe I'll learn a little bit more about the political situation during that time in the United States. And finally, the last book on my list is Tulip Fever by Deborah Moggach. I have no idea if I'm saying that author's last name right. I first heard about this book when I was traveling in Sweden this past summer. It recently was turned into a movie, and just everywhere all over the place there were posters for this movie plastered. And it just looked really interesting, so I decided to do a little research on it, and I discovered that it was based on this novel. And this novel is set in Amsterdam in the early 1600s during the time of Tulip Mania. Now, I don't know too much about what the book means when it says Tulip Mania, but hopefully I'll find out. And it follows a fictitious painter by the name of Jan van Loo, who becomes enamored with the wife of one of his patrons. I really liked the book Girl with a Pearl Earring, which is not by this author, but it covers a very similar subject matter. In that book, it follows Vermeer as he becomes sort of enamored with the subject who posed for Girl with a Pearl Earring. In this book, it doesn't follow a real painter, but the themes seem to be incredibly similar. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, I really like books that cover art and artistry, and I'm hoping to learn a little bit more about painting process and maybe how Dutch painters approach their work and their craft. So those are 5 historical fiction books that I'm hoping to read at the beginning of this year. I didn't pick too many, so I'm hoping I was not overly ambitious. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date with all of my latest content. And until next time, my name is Laura, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye! So in order to be a more well-rounded reader, that's really hard to say. So in order to be a more well-rounded reader,